Order online at Picasso'sPizza.net.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome inside another edition of Buffalo Trench Talk. I'm Mike Bunt, joined alongside Carson Hayek and AJ Sobalski. We have an exciting show for you guys tonight. We're going to dive right into it. We're skipping introductions. We don't need to hear about what AJ's favorite cereal is or any of that other random crap that he has slated for us tonight. So already ruining the beginning of the show for him. We're going to get into the breaking news from this afternoon from Elena Getzenberg, who said that Alec Anderson has been named the Bills' starting left guard. Obviously, he was in a battle with Austin Corbett. He gets the nod over the veteran. I'm going to go straight to you, Carson, then you, AJ. What are your thoughts on Anderson being named the Bills' starting left guard?
Yeah, I'm incredibly happy for him, first and foremost. The guy who's really battled his way from the bottom of the depth chart to a guy who's been on the practice squad, to a guy who was more of your swing tackle, backup tackle type of role. And here he is. Now he's, this is a perfect example how versatility can really work into your favor. A guy who can play tackle. Now he's playing guard. We've seen him bounce around a little bit. And here you go. Here's his shot. A big hole to fill with David Edwards heading out. Corbett, I think, is a guy who's been in this league in a minute, Super Bowl champion. Has done some good things for a long time in this league. Nothing super stellar, but a guy who certainly is respected at the guard position. I thought that was the biggest battle for the Bills all camp. And the fact that they, choose to go with Alec Anderson, I think, is a big vote of confidence in him. With that said, though, it kind of brings up the discussion of what happens with Austin Corbett next. Is there a team that might take a swing on him with like a 6th or 7th round pick? Yeah, probably. I think he's still going to be on the team. It kind of depends on what they value right now. But all in all, just happy for Alec Anderson. I think it's a really big opportunity for him. The time that we have seen with him with the starters, especially recently, it's looked pretty sharp. And again, left guard is a little bit different than your tackle position, a lot less pressure. So I think Alec Anderson's ready to go, and I'm excited to watch him go out there with the ones come week 1. He's earned this.
Yeah, I think Austin Corbett's definitely going to be on the roster just because of the veteran presence he could bring, and for injuries, his versatility. Someone that I think is more likely to be moved would be a Cedric Van Granger, a younger guy that's really hasn't caught his footing yet in the NFL. I think that could be more likely. I just think Corbett's is so valuable as a depth piece for the Bills that means he can, be something if push comes to shove. In terms of Alec Anderson, I think it's an interesting kind of journey for him. I mean, he comes into the league, doesn't really see much playing time at all, on the practice squad a couple of years, and now, like Carson said, it was a swing tackle last year, has continued to work and put his head down. He's definitely earned this position, definitely has the opportunity now to go and earn himself a big contract here in the next couple of years. But, I think there is some question marks around what he can be. Now, again, he hasn't been given the opportunity, and I don't know how much left guard he's played in his career, but again, he just beat a guy that has started multiple games in this league, and that's impressive enough where I think he has earned it. You can't deny he hasn't earned this position he's in. It's good for the continuity. They'll have a couple weeks to get used to each other now on that left side between Dawkins and McGovern. You saw Anderson in. He's been around the team for a while now, and it'll be interesting, but definitely earned, and a guy that I think you could talk about either way. Is it the right move? Is it the right move? Is it going to be a good move for the Bills having Alec Anderson fill in at left guard? That'll be seen in the future.
I don't know if there's really any definitive answer. We haven't seen him on the field in this type of role before, so it's wait and see. I'm not going to give any proclamations about it being the right move, the wrong move. I think the good news is when you have a Corbett as a backup, if Anderson doesn't make it work early in the season, you have a backup option that you trust and have faith that could work out. So either way, I do believe the Bills are going to be in a good situation. One of the other topics I really wanted to get into before we really go to the meats and bones of the show, John Murphy recently wrote a column for WIVB basically saying that Joe Brady is not ready to lead the Bills to a Super Bowl, citing his youth, inexperience, and the fact that only 2 coaches in NFL history have ever won a Super Bowl in their first season. those being Don McCafferty with the Colts in Baltimore, and then George Seifert with the Niners. I'm going to go to you first, Carson. What are your thoughts on Murphy's article? Do you think there's validity to it, or do you think he's overreacting by saying that Joe Brady doesn't have what it takes to get the Bills to a Super Bowl in year one?
Openly transparent, I did not read the article. I'm aware of what it did say, though. When I kind of saw the headline that somebody reported on it, I kind of thought it was a little ridiculous that's kind of held against Joe Brady right off the bat like that. My reasoning behind that is for the past we've seen with head coaches in this league, it's consistently gotten younger. And Joe Brady's now the youngest coach in the NFL. You look at guys like Sean McVay, he was 31 or something like that when he was hired. Half of his team was older than their head coach. And that's kind of crazy to think about, but that's kind of the way the NFL's gone. Just Mike McDonald, all these guys. Like, if you're hiring a coach now over the age of 50, it's because odds are they're not an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. They were already a head coach at one point in time. Look at the Harbaughs, for example. I don't know. I thought it was a little bit of a stretch by Murph. I think he's got a lot of really, really good opinions. Not sure if this was 100% one that I would agree with. Again, we haven't even seen them play the first game. I know he's projecting a little bit how he sees this playing out, but I wouldn't use Joe Brady's youth as something. He's been coaching football for the last decade now at the highest of levels too. LSU, you look at them, yeah, you can make the argument Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Joe Burrow, all those guys. Yeah, I mean, they still won the national championship though. And then you also look at, him being an offensive coordinator for one of the league's premier teams in the last 3 years who've been in big moments time and time again. It's not like they're going to make the playoffs and then all of a sudden it's, okay, we've never been here before and Joe Brady. It's just he's been there. He's helped guide the ship. And I don't know. It's just it was kind of a little bit of a push, if you're asking me.
Yeah, I mean, I can see why someone, and I think a lot of fans, especially fans that have been around and have experienced a lot of heartbreak, the older fans, the older generation, I've heard a lot of talk about Joe Brady and his inexperience and him being too young to lead a group of men. I get where it's coming from. I think there is some validity to it. I think you do have some question marks about a guy who's never been a head coach before. He is only 36 years old. I get that. I understand why someone would think that. But in my opinion, I think, it is what it is. It's going to happen either way. I mean, his article, Murph didn't really like back it up with much, in my opinion. He just kind of said he was young and inexperienced but I don't think it's too big of a deal. I mean, it's all that matters is right now they have Josh Allen in a window and Joe Brady's, has the reins. He called the plays for this team the last 2 years. That's what's in front of them. You could say all you want that, they're going to foul, whatever, but I think there's not been many head coaches that have been 36. So to cite that as a reason, I think is a little weak on his part. But yeah, overall, I think Joe Brady's going to be fine. I think the article, I get where they're coming from. I get where he's kind of pondering to the people that do believe that, because there are people that believe that, and Murph probably does as well. There is a lot of doubt with going from an experienced head coach. I know at the time McDermott didn't have crazy experience, but building up that with the Bills to a 36-year-old kind of different vibe, more teammate, player friendly. I get why that could be an issue for some people.
I think that experience matters with being a head coach in the NFL. But if there was ever an era where youth and inexperience matter less than any other time in NFL history, it's right now. We're playing in an era where kids are playing Madden, where we have more analytics than we've ever had during any previous time in NFL history. With that data comes knowledge. Younger people are more knowledgeable about football than any other time in the history of the sport. So I'm not as worried about him being youthful and inexperienced. Will that make a difference or not? Well, big moments. Is he calling dumb timeouts? Is he making poor game management decisions? We'll see. But from what we've seen from him as an offensive coordinator, we know that he has the ability to make quality decisions. So a lot of this we'll find out in time. I have 2 points to really respond to the John Murphy article. First of all, only 1 out of 32 coaches wins a Super Bowl in any given year. To say that he's not going to win one is really not saying anything revolutionary. In fact, it's basically saying the most likely outcome, that they're probably not going to get to the Super Bowl and probably not going to win it. But that's not a bold proclamation at all. Secondly, the reason why only 2 coaches in NFL history have won a Super Bowl in their first year is most of the time first-year head coaches take over pretty crappy franchises. So you're not really going into your head coaching gigs with real legitimate opportunities to win a Super Bowl in your first year. We mentioned the 2 names, McCaffrey and Seifert. McCaffrey took over a Colts team that Don Shula was coaching. So that's why he got off to a good start. George Seifert takes over a team in San Fran that has guys like Joe Montana and Jerry Rice. So situations make a difference. Joe Brady is more similar to the McCaffrey and Seifert roles, taking over a team with Josh Allen at quarterback, than he is taking over a team like the Miami Dolphins or the New York Jets or the Arizona Cardinals. There's a big difference here. And I don't think that Murphy really acknowledges that really too well in his article. But let's go on to the offense and the defense from Saturday afternoon against Cleveland. Carson, the Bills dominated. I know it was backups, but 31-7, Kyle Allen, Shane Buechele, they got it done in the pass game. Jamori Macklin, over 100 yards receiving, a 71-yard bomb. You had Trent Sherfield Sr. making some big plays. The running game was effective. What were your quick thoughts about the offense, and was there a player that stood out to you that made an impression that you think their stock is rising? Give your answer, and then, AJ, you can follow.
I think everybody's stock went up that game, with the exclusion of maybe a player or two. It was kind of crazy to watch. Like, I felt all in all, everyone played really, really well. I thought Jared had a little bit of a rough game, and that's 2 games in a row now where he's been shaky at the offensive tackle position. Other than that, though, I thought everyone collectively played a great game. Tight end depth is kind of what stood out to me a little bit too, along with running back depth. I thought Shane Zylstra looked really, really sharp in the fourth quarter. Then, Jackson Hawes made a few plays in the passing game. I think that's something to keep an eye out for this season, is maybe they're going to want to uptick him a little bit when it comes to play action. We've already seen it already. A lot more under center looks, a lot more play action looks. Curious to see maybe the year that he has from a production standpoint. And then Ian Wheeler and Frank Gore, I think both of those guys are going to end up on somebody's 53-man roster this year at some point, because Frank Gore now, I think this is his 3rd year in the preseason with the Bills. And every single year he's played really, really well. He's earned it. It's not just because his last name's Gore. And then Ian Wheeler, a guy who's kind of come out of nowhere, just runs incredibly hard, is a heck of a player and an athlete. I do think there is a position. There's an argument to be made. I've seen it slowly start to come up about Ty Johnson's future with the Bills. I'm not ready to get rid of Ty Johnson. I think he's one of the best third string running backs in the NFL, and it's not even close. But then you look at the wide receiver position too. Trent Sherfield, I thought, had a great game against Cleveland. He's a guy who I think is going to have the Tyrell Shavers, Mac Hollins type of role until Shavers is healthy. Can block. He's got a good build to him. Does some good stuff in the play action game. Can stretch the field every now and again. Jamori Macklin, a guy who's really just kind of turned up the dial a little bit, made a play or two, in the first preseason game, and then takes that one to the house and has over 100 receiving yards. I think he's probably going to be, if anything, a practice squad guy. Other than that, probably a good story. That's no disrespect to him. I just think the depth that this team has makes that a little bit difficult. And the backup quarterback room, thoroughly impressed. Kyle Allen has played incredible. He's been within himself. He's played within himself. He knows where he's going. 1-2 check down. He's been sharp in that aspect, playing on time. Shane Buechele, I didn't think he played as well as the stats showed. You eliminate that Macklin touchdown, he has an okay day. But another guy who's probably earned himself either the emergency 3rd string quarterback job or a practice squad player, a guy who Joe Brady said he's incredibly smart. He's going to be a head coach one day. So that's all good things. It's all what you like to see. And all in all, I'd give that game an 8+. I thought offensively they were terrific.
Yeah, so I might talk about cereal in my intro, but there's no kind of question laid up during an intro about talking about cereal. Mike did talk about a player on offense, and Carson went along and went through the whole team. I don't really know how much I have to say to add on to this. I really do like Ian Wheeler and his physicality. Played at the UFL, was the MVP of the United Bowl over there, and I really do like what he can bring. It is interesting, the Ty Johnson talk. The problem with that is if you go back last year and watch that Detroit Lions game, Ty Johnson in that Lions game, he was unbelievable in that game as a pass catcher. I think he had over 100 yards in that game. One of the few Bills to have over 100 yards in a game last year. So I think what he brings is a third down back. He's the best third down back in football, according to Josh Allen, and I think that really is hard to go away from. I get Wheeler. I know Ian Wheeler. He seems like an important piece to an offense, maybe down the line, but I could see him maybe stick out of the practice squad and moving on there and seeing where he ends up. Franco Jr., same thing, like Carson said, good player. And yeah, I think I was overall pleased with the offense. I mean, you're saying it's the backups, but they also are playing the Cleveland Browns, who just named Deshaun Watson their starter after a very poor performance against the Bills' third string. So that's quite amazing to me that they're doing that. Now I get it. They could turn to Shadur and make it look better if Deshaun Watson stinks, and you really don't want to turn from Sanders to Watson. So I get it, the semantics of it, but man, it's crazy that happened. But yeah, either way, Carson said them all. I mean, I don't really have much to add to it except
come on, Carson.
I think Joe
That's
Brady.
on me.
I think Joe Brady's offense has worked with every player that stepped on the field, and they're executing at a very high level. They're limiting penalties. I mean, they're doing exactly what they should offensively, and they're being very efficient every time they step on the field. No matter who's on the field, no matter what name, they've all executed at a high level this camp and preseason.
So that gets me to the topic I really want to discuss. And I first want to get to a few comments that we have here. Yep, Josh Allen not going to be in the game on Thursday. Really don't need to see anything from him in the preseason. Then Steve here, love McD, but curious if control factor was too extreme. Does Brady bring us to the next level, or does he just stay out of the way? I think this is a really interesting conversation, and that's going to lead to my major question of the show today. I'm going to actually lead off with AJ if he ever pops back on the screen here, and that's going to be, is this the most complete Bills offense of the Josh Allen era? I'm not saying the best. We know that 2 years ago they averaged over 30.5 points a game. Ironic, because that probably was the best offense of the Josh Allen era, and it was a run-first attack. While now it looks like things might change. I'm going to let you guys both give your answer, give your reasoning, and then I'll dive into my thoughts on the matter. But I'll start with you, AJ. Is this the most complete offense of the Josh Allen era to this point in time?
I mean, on paper, I think you could make that argument. I think the offensive line really will be the big question mark. I think in terms of weapons, I mean, a healthy Dalton Kincaid, knock on wood, DJ Moore, Khalil Shakir, James Cook coming back after being the rushing leader in 2025. I don't really see a scenario where they're not a really good offense this year. Now, are they the best on paper? I still would give, in my opinion, that Beasley, Brown, Diggs offense with Gabe Davis as the wide receiver 4. I know they had Singletary at running back, but it didn't matter because they scored points like crazy. I think that offense, although it may not have been ready to win when it mattered just because of the inexperience of Josh at that point. But I think in terms of like the talent on it, if you put that team together, like with all those players at their best, I think that was a really, really good team. So I think offensively, this team might be the most complete, but I would consider maybe that 2020 offense they scored the COVID year where they were just scoring points like crazy and destroying teams left and right. They obviously lost in the AFC Championship, but that's still a team that made an AFC Championship. Only one of their Bills teams done that. So there's still something to be said, even though if you feel like they weren't ready for it, they still made it to an AFC Championship game, ultimately falling short to a dynasty at that point in the Chiefs. So, yeah, I look at this year's team. I think they have the opportunity to be special. I think they have the players to compete at a very high level. And when you have Josh Allen, age 30 season, he's definitely slowed down a little bit. I know I denied him losing a step, but I went back and watched him in 2018, 2019, and 2020, comparing him to now and how he escapes. He has lost a step with his speed, but he's still a very smart quarterback, very aware and gets the right read almost every play. So, yeah, I like this offense. I think they have the chance to be really good. But, again, it's preseason, and on paper, I'd put them right there with that 2020 offense that from a few years ago.
Over under 30 points a game for them this year, AJ?
I would go just under that. I would go like 29 and a half. So just under that.
All right, Carson, your turn. Is this the most Bills complete offense of the Josh Allen era?
I'm not sure. You'll have to ask me in like 5 weeks entirely. But if we're going off of the paper route, I would have to say no. I think AJ hit the nail right on the head. That Gabe Davis as the wide receiver 4, they had Isaiah McKenzie as well, John Brown, Cole Beasley, Stephon Diggs. I think they had Knox and I believe Tyler Kroft as well. Like all in all, that's a pretty damn good offense. I get the run game was average at best at times, but I think as far as it's tough to tell because the run game this year, I think for them is again going to be top 10 guaranteed. It's practically guaranteed. Top 5 likely. And then I think there's a really good chance that they could be the top three rushing attack in the league. Pair that with probably a top 10 passing game as well. So I think their potential is maybe a little bit higher than that year's team, but I think their floor is a little bit lower as well. I think this year DJ Moore is going to kind of be the make or break to that, in my opinion, because we've been talking about a wide receiver 1. Stephon Diggs was the wide receiver 1 in that offense that we're bringing up. If DJ Moore has an 800-yard year, I don't think you could say that's the most complete offense. If he has a 1,400-yard year, which is maybe a little rich, but if he 12 to 1,400 yards, I think there's certainly an argument. And to topple onto that, if you have James Cook have a 1,300 to 1,500-yard rushing year, I think, yeah, there you go. There's your argument, most complete offense. But, I mean, time will only tell on that. As far as the over and under on 30 points, I'm going to say, I'll probably, that's a good line. I'll take the over on that. I think they're going to be around 30.5 this year. I think they're going to have a really big year.
If you say the over, then I feel like it has to be the most complete offense of the Josh Allen
leagues
era.
Change. You only got to go 60 yards these days to score.
This is what I'm going to say. People, when they think complete, a lot of times they're thinking, the best offense they've had. They think of passing, the explosives downfield, the downfield passing threats and all that stuff. I think this might be the most complete Bills offense of the Josh Allen era to this point. And it's about balance and being able to attack every aspect of a defense. Some people are going to point to the 2020 Bills offense. That was a great year. That was a great offense. There was no fans in the stands. There was no crowd noise. Offensive numbers across the league in 2020 were elevated. They were inflated. So if you're going to compare the Bills offense to everybody else, yes, was it a great year? Yeah, but so was everybody else. So it really didn't stand apart. If you're going to go 2 years ago when Josh Allen won the MVP and they averaged 30.7 or 30.8 points a game, nobody really brings up that season. But that was compared to their competition, their best offensive season of the Josh Allen era. Now, this is why I'm going to say this is the most complete Bills offense since Josh has gotten here. You look at the early Bills years when Josh finally got to elite level, 2020 to 2023. Yes, you had a stacked wide receiver core. You had Stephon Diggs, who was a top 5 receiver in the league. You had Cole Beasley, who was one of the best slot receivers in the league. You had Gabe Davis, who was a very good number 3. At times you had Emmanuel Sanders. And then you had Dawson Knox. But where was the weakness of that offense? The run game wasn't the best. Yes, they put up good run game numbers, but Devin Singletary wasn't explosive. The Bills' run game was effective because they faced lighter boxes. Their offensive line was not great with their run yardage on average against lighter boxes. So they capitalized because their passing game was dominant. Then you look at the last 2 years. They've been a run-first attack. James Cook has been a blue-chip running back. The receiver room has been weak. Quarterback play is obviously elite, and the offensive line has been very good. But they lacked in the receiver room so much that they couldn't really get it done in big moments with their passing game. This year, you have the best quarterback in the world. You have a top 5 running back in James Cook. I believe you have a top 5 offensive line for a unit. Alec Anderson being the big question at left guard. Your tight end room is a top 10 tight end room in the league, possibly a top 5 tight end room if you get the high-end healthy production from Dalton Kincaid. Dawson Knox is a very good number 2 tight end. And then Jackson Hawes is already one of the better blocking tight ends.
Better than Dustin. He's better than Dustin Knox already.
Already a very good blocking tight end. And DJ Moore makes the big difference in the receiver room. I don't need DJ Moore to be 1,000 yards. But if DJ Moore can be an 800-plus yard receiver and be a vertical threat, and you get a healthy Dalton Kincaid, you just opened up the underneath for Khalil Shakir to go off. What are we seeing this preseason? We're seeing Khalil Shakir get some passes downfield a little bit. If you can get Shakir involved a little bit more vertical, more in the middle of the field, you can have a healthy Dalton Kincaid to take advantage of things like that. This offense is going to be dynamic because teams were trying to stop the run game for the Bills in recent years because James Cook would obliterate them. If you have a vertical downfield passing attack and you pair that with one of the most explosive running backs in the league, and you have the intermediate options with Dalton Kincaid and Khalil Shakir, tell me what the weakness of this offense is. On paper, this is the most balanced, most complete unit Josh Allen has ever had. It's not his top receiving core. We know that. It's not even what I would say a top 10 receiver core, but it's good enough when you pair it with a very good offensive line, a very good tight end room, a very good running back room, and arguably the best quarterback in the league. So I believe it is going to be a top unit. Will they be over 30 points a game? I'll go just under. I believe they'll be around 29 points a game this year, but that's going to be very, very good and dangerous. And the one other thing I'll say, Joe Brady, I believe, was neutered by Sean McDermott. And we're already seeing some differences with how they're doing things in the preseason. I know the preseason doesn't matter, but sometimes you can get a few tendencies, and it looks like they want to open up the passing game a little bit with Joe Brady. With that being said, any rebuttals to what I have to say right there? Carson, AJ, anything that you want to say back to me?
No, I think you got a point. I mean, here we are a few weeks before the regular season, so nobody can really give an actual argument that's 100% concrete because we're going off of on paper, and on paper isn't the same as what the on-field productivity is. So I agree to some degree with what you're saying. We'll have to see. I do think I brought up in the group chat that teams are gifted the ball at the 40-yard line now. So that has a lot to do with yards per game numbers and efficiency and all that stuff. And defenses are a little bit different now than what they're. The game shifted from years ago. So I don't know. We'll find out. It all depends. To me, if their passing game can take that next step this year, because last year, whether we liked it or not, I thought it was a good passing game. I know a lot of people thought it was really bad. It certainly wasn't great. But if they can get that good to really good, it doesn't even have to be great, and still have 90% of the rushing attack and productivity that they had last year, they're going to be just fine. I think they certainly have potential this year to be the most complete offense, most balanced offense that we've seen in the Allen era.
And then just a quick comment by Steve Noble. At the time, Diggs was no better than DJ Moore. Josh Allen made Diggs better, and Moore will end up being elite if healthy, just like Diggs. I will say this. Moore is more, pun not intended, of a high-end receiver coming to Buffalo than what Diggs was. But Moore is also about 3 years older.
I don't know.
That's a terrible take, man.
Let's be real. Moore has already had 4 1,000-yard receivers. Now, he's farther along in his career. When Stephon Diggs came to Buffalo, the thought was that Minnesota was holding him back. But if you really look back to his Minnesota numbers, he had a year coming into Buffalo, he had 63 receptions on 94 targets for 1,130 and 6 touchdowns. The year before that, he had 102 for 1021. If you go to DJ Moore and you go to those same years that he was in Carolina.
Oh no, do last year.
You didn't listen to what I phrased. This is why phrasing is important. I said at the point they came to Buffalo, DJ Moore is more accomplished than what Stephon Diggs was when they both came to Buffalo. The point being that Stephon Diggs was younger. He had a higher upside, higher ceiling. And we knew that with Josh Allen, that was probably going to unlock more out of him. While DJ Moore, at this point, has already had 4 1,000-yard seasons. If you look at what Moore did as a 22-year-old in Carolina, 87 receptions, 1,175, 23-year-old, 66 for 1193. 24-year-old, 93 for 1157. Then even his first year in Chicago, 96 for 1364. His second year in Chicago, 98 for 966. Moore has accomplished coming to Buffalo more than what Stephon Diggs had accomplished coming to Buffalo. Now, Moore is 3 years older, I believe, than Diggs when Diggs came to Buffalo. So you expected Diggs to be around for the long haul, while we don't expect Moore to be around for 4 or 5 seasons. That being said, at this point of his career, DJ Moore is still a high-level player, as is Stephon Diggs. So it will be interesting if that unlocks something, because if they were going from a Stephon Diggs to a DJ Moore, I would say maybe that's a little bit of a drop-off for the offense. Maybe you're losing something. But we're going from a Keon Coleman and a Josh Palmer to a DJ Moore. That's a big leap. And I don't think fans realize how much that opens things up. And it might open up a lot for not just Khalil Shakir and Kincaid, but Josh Palmer and Keon Coleman are now going to have matchups against lesser corners where they're going to be able to potentially take advantage. And one other thing that we've seen a little bit is that Joe Brady has been willing to move Keon Coleman around in different areas that they haven't been willing to in previous years, which might open things up for Keon a little bit. And I like this comment from Steve Noble. Moore has never had a real quarterback.
Neither did Curtis Samuel.
But DJ Moore is not. Curtis Samuel isn't even in the same category as DJ Moore. Curtis Samuel is a guy that averaged 600 yards a year for his career. DJ Moore averages 900 plus per season for his career. They're not even. This is not apples to apples. What you're saying right there.
No, it's not. It's really not.
But appreciate everybody tuning into the show so far. We're Buffalo Trench Talk, presented by Picasso's Pizza. Please hit the like button, subscribe to our channel. Let's move over to the defense. 2 preseason games, guys. They have not allowed. They have allowed a total of 21 points. 14 in the opener against Carolina, 7 against the Browns. I know it was a lot of backups, but we did see some potential starters on Saturday. I'm going to go to you first, AJ. What were your impressions of the defense on Saturday, and who stood out to you?
Yeah, I'll start with a name that really stood out to me, and I think he's kind of been a guy that slowly, I wouldn't say fallen under the radar just because he is a hometown kid, but he hasn't been talked about nearly as much this offseason and training camp, and that's Buffalo Joe Andreessen. I mean, I think he made several plays behind the line of scrimmage. He was flying to the ball, good aggression, good in pass coverage, got his hands on a couple balls in the pass coverage. So I was really impressed with him. Overall, I think the defense has looked good. Now, where are the Browns and Carolina going to rank offensively in the NFL? I think you could make an argument that both could be in the bottom half of the league, and Browns maybe bottom 4. But it's still a good sign that with Jim Leonard, the Bills defense has been able to make some plays. And honestly, I think that you could make an argument this Bills defensive line might actually have something going. I know we haven't seen a lot from them, but I think the idea of Bradley Chubb up front with Greg Rousseau at Oliver, TJ Sanders, you have the depth there also with Landon Jackson playing more inside and having some good run stuff. Deion Walker, obviously his coming out party a couple weeks ago again. So I think this defensive line's giving me a little bit more hope. Now, I think there is some concern with the linebacker room still, Terrell Bernard's health. What's that going to look like? But overall, this preseason, I think the Bills defense has done its job against defenses or offenses that haven't really scared me too much. I don't know if did Tet play in Carolina against Carolina.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
Wasn't playing. So I mean that right there is half their offense for Carolina. So yeah, it's good. It's a good sign. But going to Houston and playing Nico Collins and that team, I know their offense isn't great by any means, but it's a step above these two. Will be a whole different thing. And also, not to rebuttal late, but I think the really good offensive line statement. I think the Bills do have a good offensive line, but I wouldn't go as far as really good. I know that's a semantic argument, but Josh was sacked 40 times last year. I know he admits some of that was on him, but I think there is some concern with pass protection with this team, whether it's Josh get rid of the ball on time or whatnot. Deion's getting older. You have a new left guard. Torrance, obviously, that's his weakness, would be pass protection. So I think there is a little bit more concern there. And I'm a big fan of the O-line, but that would be my only, like, if I was going to argue your point about on paper, I think this offensive line has more concern with the loss of Aaron Cromer than we're making it out to be. And I think with Allen being 30 now, I think it'll become more of a focus because, like I said, I don't think he's as mobile as he used to be. Mike, you were early on that. I'll give you your credit, but I think there is some
As
concern
usual.
there. Yeah, I think there is some concern there. And I'll keep saying it, that maybe this offensive line isn't as good as I thought it'd be going into this year. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think those are all points that are certainly valid. Defensively, as far as the defensive side of the ball, a guy who's I've been really impressed with is Davison Igbinosun. His length it shines against receivers. 6'3", I think something around 200 pounds. The guy, he's built like an NFL corner. We see it. We saw a little bit when he was at Ohio State. He's just lengthy, really, really aggressive. To me, what stood out against Cleveland was his tackling. He made 2 or 3 really, really strong tackles. There was one play where Raheem Sanders got to the outside. I believe it was in the second quarter, just before Shadir threw his interception. And if Igbinosun doesn't make the tackle, Sanders probably down inside the 10-yard line. If not, he scores. It was a really, really sharp tackle. He stood out to me. I think he's a guy that if Max Hairston isn't ready, or if he's not, cutting it early in the season, I got no problems giving it to the rookie. I think he's really done a nice job earning that. Elarms Orr has been a little disappointing to me. I still think he's got a ton of potential, and I'm not really worried about him after 2 preseason games. But, AJ, you brought up Joe Andreessen. I think that's a great shout by you. I thought he's had a really, really sharp preseason. You look at a guy like Keontae Jenkins. His name hasn't been called as much as maybe I would have liked it to be. Along with Dorian Williams, I thought he's been okay. We saw him play a little later maybe than some people would anticipated against Cleveland. But, yeah, that linebacker room is what I have circled. I think somebody in that linebacker room's got to take a step up this year, whether that's Terrell Bernard, Dorian Williams, the rookie Elarms Orr. Somebody's going to have to do it. And also, I think safety depth is the only thing that right now that I'm a little concerned about is Gardner Johnson is a guy who's kind of notoriously played really physical. At times has dealt with some injuries. Cole Bishop as well, for that matter. Geno Stone is really, really, really struggled. Like, it's scaring me a little bit. Like, there's times where he's out there, and I'm never going to, I'll be the first one to tell you, like, he's trying as hard as he can. Like, I really hate to dump on players. There were 3 or 4 plays against Cleveland. I genuinely had no idea what he was doing. And I hate to say that because, he's out there. He's been around the league a long time. Like, he's going to be richer and more athletic than I ever will be. Like, I have no place to comment on that. But there were some times where I was just bewildered at what I saw. And then Damar Hamlin, I think he's fine. I think he's a little overblown. He's an okay player. Is what he is at this stage of the game. But Jalen Kilgore, guy who hopefully can get healthy. I know he returned to practice. I'm excited to see what he can do. Extremely versatile, hell of an athlete. He could be the answer to that. And Jordan Hancock, also a guy. I guess he'll be the last player that I bring up. But he's really, really impressed me through these first 2 preseason games. The list goes on. I mean, everyone practically has played really, really well. So I'm impressed. Landon Jackson, too. We'll just throw him out there. He's been cool. So, Mike Bunt, if there's anybody that, I happen to miss along with AJ, please inform the people.
Well, you just mentioned the entire, defensive roster, so I don't know if there's anybody left for me to mention. I will say this, preseason's vanilla. They're really not showing a ton defensively, but it's encouraging that they seem to be playing as a unit. I will second you about Geno Stone. He's been horrendous. I don't know how he was a starting safety on another NFL team.
Where was he?
The fact where a lot of us just assumed Damar Hamlin was gone, and now Damar Hamlin feels like he's safe because Geno Stone is just so bad. I think Stone might be on his way out if he continues this play. Another point I will bring up, IGB. I was not as low on the drafting of him out of Ohio State as many fans were. When I was young, a lot of people told me you can never have too many corners in the NFL. It's a little different than receiver because you only can get so many people to football. At corner, you're going to have injuries. You're going to need depth. Players are going to have to play at certain points, whether it's rotations or other things. And the other thing is defensively, you're going to need to match up against different offenses. So sometimes you're going to want to be zone. Other times you're going to want to be man-to-man. You might want speedsters like Hairston. You might want guys that are longer, more physical like IGB. So the move to draft him, I never understood the outrage behind it. I'll be honest with you. I was the opposite side of 95% of Bills Mafia when they took him. I watched him at Ohio State. Was he penalty prone? Yes. Was he a little bit overly physical at times? Yes. But that guy has potential. We're seeing it right now. And in Denver, the Broncos ran a lot of man-to-man coverage. IGB can help out in those areas. He gives you versatility. The Bills drafted him to play. And I know the thought was, he's going to be a backup. He's not going to see the field much. He's only going to see the field in injuries. No, he's going to play. Both him and Hairston are going to see the field quite a bit. And I could see them being matchup driven, who gets the majority, who stands out, who doesn't. When it comes to other players on the team, I think it's a little interesting that Dorian Williams is playing these preseason games and playing as late. We all wanted Caleb Elarms-Ord to really stand out. I have not been overly impressed by what we've seen. That's not a bad thing. He's a fourth-round pick. Things take time. So I'm not going to say I'm upset with that, but I do hope he can take it to another level. Defensive line-wise, Landon Jackson, do we all give up on him a little bit too early? He looks bigger. They always say when you're changing your body after a rookie year, that's not a good sign for your future. But he seems a lot more comfortable in his current role. We haven't seen much of TJ Sanders really doing anything great. I do appreciate the Joe Andreessen point. He had the tip pass that led to the Hamlin interception, had a tackle, I believe, or contributed to a tackle for loss on a later play.
Great pursuit.
It feels like he's going to be one of those last guys to make it, more so because of his special teams contributions and that he can provide some backup help. The rest of the D-line, I really don't have strong opinions. I need to see it in the regular season to really speak more to it. But we've talked about it a lot. I'm going to phrase this question to you guys, and you can choose to answer it however you want. Is the addition of Jim Leonard more important than any individual defensive player on the Bills? Or I'll word it this way. Is Jim Leonard, being the Bills defensive coordinator, more of an X factor than any individual player on the Bills? I'll go with you first, AJ.
I mean, yeah, I would say, of course, because you have a lot of players that are returning from a McDermott scheme that you feel like, and I think a lot of fans would agree with this. I don't know how you won it. Really maxed out their ceiling with McDermott. I think you saw Greg Rousseau kind of flatline. I think you saw Ed Oliver kind of flatline. I think you saw a number of players not take it to that next level. AJ Epinesa. A lot of guys just didn't take it to that next level. You even saw Matt Milano decline. You saw a lot of players that were old on the defense decline a little bit. And, that obviously age has a lot to do with that. But it also could have been a little bit of what Sean McDermott was doing defensively and expecting the same kind of thing. And now, look, I look at it this way. Joe Brady and Jim Leonard, all the players have talked about it defensively. Jim Leonard is allowing them to play more free. Jim Leonard's noticed that some players play a little bit robotic because of how McDermott kind of taught them and how they were super focused and hyper fixated on little assignments or doing this the right way. I think when you pair, it makes sense that they're paired together because that's how Joe Brady is too, right? You feel like he's a little bit more relaxed, more carefree. And I think Jim Leonard goes along with that kind of defensive mentality where Joe Brady, yeah, he might have been a little bit more easygoing or more relaxed or more, I don't know, you know what I'm trying to say. Whereas McDermott was the opposite of that, a little more tense, a little more uptight, a little more assignment oriented, a little more detail oriented. You got to do this if this happens. You got to do that if this happens. We saw this on film, so you have to be there. I think with Leonard and Brady, it's more of a continuity in terms of their mindset, both offensively and defensively. And a lot of things rub over, right? Offensively and defensively, you look at it. That stuff matters. When you have a similar mindset offensively, that can bode well for a defense. When you're seeing that in practice every day, that can bode well for an offense and vice versa. So, yeah, I think he's the biggest X factor. If he can get these guys to reach a new level and become a better version of themselves, play more free, and learn how to play in a new scheme the right way and play together, I think that's the ultimate X factor as to can this defense be good enough to do it in the big moments down the stretch.
AJ, of all the points I've heard you say in the last year and a half, I think that right there was probably one of your best ones. Not only schematically does it change, obviously the looks of the defense, but also I think there's a new vision. Like you brought up the continuity from the top down and how the mentality should be. Like I almost get a sense, obviously I'm not in the room, so I don't know for sure, but I get the sense that I heard a coach say this one time. It's okay to make a mistake, just make the mistake at 110%. I felt there were times, and they've talked about this with robotics, with how some of the players play defensively in particular, that Sean McDermott, he had them think a ton. And depending on the player, that's a good thing. And depending on the opposite side of the player, it's a bad thing. I think Terrell Bernard's a guy who can just go out there and play free. I think that's going to really, really help him. But it was very detail oriented. When you kind of just go out there now and you can do more reacting instead of thinking. I think for a majority of players now, especially when it comes to like this generation of players, which is kind of like my generation of players too, to a really weird extent. It's easier for players just to go out there and react and play rather than try to see things that are coming, try to think it through. When you're thinking, you're not normally moving. You're not naturally moving. Your instincts aren't taking over. So I'm really curious to see maybe how that mentality and philosophy goes for some of these guys. I think that could be the best thing for some of these players that we've seen, like Terrell Bernard, who at times kind of seems a little, overstimulated, or at times he has too much on his plate. So I think this is a great opportunity for guys like him. Maybe Greg Rousseau is another guy. Without a doubt, I think Jim Leonard's the biggest X factor compared to maybe any player they could have brought in, with the exception of like 5 guys in the league. So just his vision. Obviously, the scheme changes. You pair that together with the continuity from the top down. I think you have a recipe for something that could maybe not necessarily right off the bat, but down the line become something really, really special. And it certainly helps when everybody, you ask about Jim Leonard, says he's probably going to be a head coach one day. When you ask people that question, they're not going to lie to you more times than not. And the fact that everyone has glowingly responses about Jim Leonard and kind of say similar things, I think really kind of shows you the future that he might have.
And one thing that's really important when talking about guys like Joe Brady and Jim Leonard is that they're also part of the new wave of younger coaches in this league. Both have college experience. Both have been under quality coaches in the past, and they have had a lot of success already doing different things. I know with Joe Brady, we always refer to LSU and his time with Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. That was a historic year, arguably the greatest college offense of all time. But with Jim Leonard, he had a lot of success at Wisconsin as a defensive coordinator. And then he had a limited opportunity as an interim head coach there. So he does have some head coaching experience in the Big Ten, which means something. To go to Denver, coach under Sean Payton, to learn from someone that is an offensive mastermind who's maybe telling him, this is what I would do to your defense, and being able to react to that. Those are valuable lessons. And the other thing I really think highly of both Leonard and Brady is I feel like they are very good communicators. You hear Brady use the word love a lot. That's not a word that I believe older coaches are going to use often, at least in the context that Joe Brady is using it. People might say, oh, I love the fan base, I love this team. But like when Joe Brady talks, like he talks about loving one another, loving your teammate, loving them as people. And he is a very open person, which a lot of times in football, when you're talking about masculinity and topics like that, that's kind of frowned upon by some coaches because they think you're lesser if you're open like that. I think this Bills team has a very tight-knit group because they feel like they can be open with one another. And Jim Leonard is a very good communicator as well. And for being a short man, he has some massive hops. That clip of him dunking at Wisconsin was some insane stuff. Why don't just get to a couple comments here? We can see Steve Noble talking about the most exciting part of the season is we don't have a damn clue what this team will look like. It's nice. There is some uncertainty about this year, which makes it fun. I feel like in past years it's been dreading the eventual demise. And then Buffalo Truther, appreciate all of your comments as well. We're going to get to the Steelers preseason game, final opportunity for fans to see new Highmark Stadium before the start of the regular season. AJ, what do you want to see out of the Bills on Thursday evening, knowing that Josh Allen will not be part of the action? Is there anything that you want to take away from this game, or is it mostly just put the backups out there, let them fight for their final spots on the roster, and come out healthy?
Yeah, I mean, obviously coming out healthy is the big thing for this team. You have 2 weeks now till football. I know there's a couple college games this weekend. North Carolina's playing. I think TCU. You got a couple of games there on the college team before week 1 starts in a couple of weeks. So yeah, football's right around the corner. At this time, the most important thing is staying healthy. But I'll just give a name on each side of the ball that I'm looking for against Pittsburgh. Obviously, a grand summary of what I expect. I want the Bills to continue to do what they've done in the preseason, which is really dominate every aspect of the game from start to finish. And I think the Steelers are going to be a bit more of a test. I think Drew Alaris had a really good preseason over there in Pittsburgh, and he's done a really good job with that unit. So, and Mike McCarthy. So I think they're going to be a little bit more tested there, and a guy that's obviously hungry to prove that he is what we once thought he would be coming out of college from Penn State. So I think he's got a lot to play for in this final preseason game before the regular season starts. Offensively, I'll start. I think Skylar Bell, if he's good to go, which he's trending that way, I think he's a player to watch for me offensively. You know, Josh Allen's not going to be in there. That was announced today by Joe Brady. But I think with the way Kyle Allen and Shane Buechele have been throwing the football, I think that could give guys like Skylar Bell a huge opportunity to get some reps in, some live game reps, because he's been sidelined in and out of training camp in the preseason. So getting him out there and moving him around, seeing what he can do in different spots, his versatility, can he play on the outside? Is he an inside-only player? I think that's important to figure out here and there against Pittsburgh. And then defensively, a name to watch. I'm going to go with 1 second. Hold on, I'm looking here. Let me think. I lost my train of thought. I'll go with Elam Zor. I know Carson mentioned him earlier as a guy that has been a little bit disappointing, and he's wanted to see a linebacker kind of step up, whether it's Keontae Jenkins or Buffalo Joe or Dorian Williams. I think Caleb Elam Zor has had every opportunity thus far to prove himself, and I think he's had some moments during training camp. He was the talk of training camp for the first week, and that's kind of died down a bit. I'd like to see him kind of get his name back into the grand scheme of things here as we wait a couple of weeks, because that position is so important to fill that position with the loss of Milano, who's been a player there for many years. So I'll go with Elam Zor. I'll go with Skylar Bell, no injuries, and I'm hoping that the Bills continue to showcase that they can compete with, I think, a much better roster in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, all good points. I think the thing that I'm looking forward to most is and seeing that I think will have the most consequence for regular season football will be the punter competition. Tommy DeMann I thought was okay. I thought his first punt was great, and then after that he kind of was like just another punter. Mitch Wishnowsky I thought had an okay day in Cleveland. I think he only had one punt, but those guys are going to have to get used at some point throughout the year. So you kind of know what you're getting. DeMann, a guy who they did draft. So I think this third preseason game probably means the most when it comes to, the current Bills this regular season to those two guys. But as far as, offensive side of the ball, I think Ben Van Sumeren, the fullback, is a guy who's kind of gotten his name tossed around a little bit lately. Cover One showed a really good clip of him kicking out the defensive end. That got a lot of attention. And I think he's a guy that, Jackson Aker, they had two fullbacks less than 2 weeks ago, and Aker played, I think, like 3-4 snaps offensively first preseason game, and he was cut. So clearly they kind of made their decision on the fullback perspective. I know Joe Brady said that, hey, we're not going to keep a fullback just to keep a fullback. But the fact that Ben Van Sumeren has been getting a lot of these reps, they have him out wide a little bit, blocking occasionally for some of these swing screens. And the loss of Reggie Gilliam, I think, also kind of plays a role of it. Like, they're going to probably want a fullback and how they run the football in their aspect. I don't know if he's necessarily clinched the roster, but fullback's been very important in the run game. So I think a big game coming up for him. And on the defensive side of the ball, Kenai Walker, I think, is going to be the guy that I have circled, the guy who people are hoping makes the roster. I thought he had a good game against Cleveland. Wasn't great, but he stood out consistently over time. And you never know. One game like this against Pittsburgh, it's kind of do or die for a guy like him. That could be the difference, whether or not they keep Toriano Pride over him, who they drafted, or Kanai Walker, does enough to say, hey, I'm ready to be on the 53-man roster. I think either way, he's probably good on the practice squad, but we'll have to see. That's the fun of this. I think there's 70 guys right now who deserve to be on the 53-man roster on this team. And obviously there's going to be some really, really difficult decisions, probably some more difficult decisions than what they've had in previous years. And, depth is never a bad thing. So I'm excited. Still a lot to play for, I think, for some of these backups come this third and final preseason game.
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. The third preseason game really doesn't mean anything, except for the people at the bottom of the roster fighting for final spots and practice squad roles and stuff like that. So from a fan perspective, not very important. For the players, very important. Two players I would say I'm looking out for. On offense, it would definitely be Skylar Bell. I'm with you on that, AJ. And then the two running backs near the bottom, Frank Gore Jr., Ian Wheeler, see if they have anything they can bring to the table. Defensively, TJ Sanders. I haven't seen a lot from him so far. I want to see if he can bring anything to the table on Thursday, assuming that he's playing. And then one thing I want to end the show with, we didn't talk about it today much, and I'm just going to be very quick with it. Obviously, last weekend, we found out the tragic news about Ed Oliver's son passing away. As a former sports anchor who graduated with a journalism degree, Carson's going to school right now at St. Bonaventure for journalism. AJ wrote for the Batavia Daily News. Some of us were talking this over, thoughts on it. What are the ethical, what's the right thing to do? What's the wrong thing to do? The only conclusion that can be made in this scenario is that the person who reported it, who I'm not even going to give him the attention, was in the wrong. And it's not that something like this can't be reported, but there's a right way and a wrong way to go about it. And he did it for clicks. He never reached out to the Bills. He never reached out to Ed Oliver for comment. And if you would have reached out to the Bills or Ed Oliver and they would have said, please keep this quiet, you'd think they would respect the wishes. And if they wanted to say something on it to get it out there and at least so people were aware of it, then you could have gone forward and done it that way. But to just do this as a clickbait type story to get attention on your Twitter account, it's just despicable. And like I said earlier, there is a proper way where you could have gone about it and reported this, but that is going to be an extreme rarity. You always respect the family in these situations. There is an argument to be made that Ed could be considered a public figure due to him being a football player in a very public spotlight. But even if you think that's a valid point, you don't report it. You don't report it. The pros of reporting this are so minimal. There's nothing to be gained by trying to gain. There's nothing to be gained off of a personal tragedy. All you're going to do is lose in the end. So I just wanted to give my thoughts. I was really upset with how that all went to be. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on the topic or anything. If you do, final thoughts before we wrap up this show.
Yeah, just feel for Ed, man. That's like an incredible tragedy to lose your child at that age and that way. Praying for him and his family. That really, really sucks. And obviously, I think he should, he's earned the fact that he should have as much time as he needs and whatever grieving process that is. So just all in all, just terrible.
Yeah. Sad how it was, again, spread in the media, in today's media sphere, and how people don't have the understanding of they will do whatever it takes for that self-gratification to make themselves feel like they, receive this many clicks or they get this many views over, the right thing to do. So yeah, terrible what happened. Very sad for Ed Oliver. And, obviously he's been through, who knows, in the last 2 months. I can't even imagine what he's going through. So yeah, sad stuff. And again, how it came out was absolutely awful. And I'm glad that, the quarterback of the franchise spoke and talked and discussed how bad and evil it was to do that in that way.
And I do want to give props to the members of the Buffalo media that didn't report it, that might have known about it ahead of time. I know AJ and myself, we had conversations about what is the right thing to do, what's the wrong thing, is it permittable journalism ethics-wise, and I told him if I was in the same situation, it's not something I would have reported. Now, I do think a conversation should be had on what you do with that information if it ever comes to you. But I applaud the Buffalo media for not exploiting the opportunity to post that. And the fact that it is a clickbait type person on Twitter that posted it, it's not surprising. And hopefully Ed is now getting the privacy he needs and the support of his family and teammates inside the locker room as he continues to grieve with everything. And you can only hope that football provides him the escape that he needs to try to move forward in this unfortunate time. We appreciate everybody that tuned in for an hour tonight of Buffalo Trench Talk. Got a lot of topics. Went over Joe Brady and the Bills offense. Is this the most complete unit yet? Is Jim Leonard the X factor? We reviewed the Cleveland Browns game, both offense, defense, and previewed the Steelers game. If you haven't already, please smash that like button. Subscribe to Trainwreck Sports. We appreciate everybody that tuned in. We're every Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. So thanks for tuning in. I'm Mike Bunt, joined alongside Carson Hayek and AJ Sobalski. We'll see you next week.